submit the research plan to JNS office. あ、OK。今日いけなくなる？じゃあお願いします。
Okay. I'd like to introduce a study entitled Evaluating South Africa's Tobacco Control Policy Using a Synthetic Control Method, which is published in Tobacco Control. The reason why I chose this paper is that in the fiscal 2018 medical pricing reforms, a new early mobilization and rehabilitation additional point, in Japanese, Sokirisho Rehabilitation Kasan, was established. Until then, only rehabilitation staffs could claim additional points for early mobilization, for example, Shoki Kasan or Soki Kasan. And this new category aimed to facilitate early mobilization collaborating among medical staffs. And in Yamagata Prefecture, only one acute hospital has been introduced, this new additional point. So my question is that, what is the appropriate method to evaluate this policy change occurring in 2018? And I thought DID method is appropriate way, and because it enables us to remove the portion of confounding due to time invariant differences between comparison groups in unobserved covariates. On the other hand, this method has a limitation, a so-called parallel trend assumption, which means treatment and comparison groups have equivalent trends for the study outcome before the start of the intervention. And the synthetic control method overcome this parallel assumption limitation. And I'm going back to the study design. And this study is the observational panel study, which is ecological design using national statistics across the world. The data came from 1990 to 2004. And the eligible criteria are shown here. And South Africa was selected as the treatment group. And as for control groups, they selected countries that did not engage. They did not engage in significant tobacco control initiatives over the study periods, and countries that are similar to South Africa, for example, economic development level. And as for outcome, they selected cigarette consumption per capita. And as for exposure, policy change in South Africa in 1994 was selected. As shown in the figure right here, right there, South Africa has since 1994 aggressively and consistently increased the excise tax on cigarettes. And synthetic control method is kind of a simulation method. And the key concept of this method is to be what would have happened to the treatment group if it had not received the treatment. So we need to extract untreated group. And in this study, they selected here, showing criteria here, and the country that did not meet the criteria shown here. Sorry. And donor pool is the specific term in the synthetic control method, and which means the let's say untreated groups, right? Yeah. Untreated groups. Yes. And the equation for this method is shown here, but I'll skip that. And yes, the most important thing is that the treatment effect is calculated by this formula and using weighted average of donor pool outcomes, Kaju-Kasam. And the weighted average was calculated using this formula and calculated to computing the minimum value, which means distance, and to calculate the weighted average. And more details on this method is available here. So please refer when you're interested in this.
I think here it's like kind of a matching, like in matching PS matching, the distance.
Distance. Yeah. Distance. Yes, kind of matching. Yes, exactly. Going back to the results. Oh. Yeah. And they selected 24 countries as donor pool. For example, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, China, and so on. And as shown in the green square, these represent the weight value, and the total sum of the weight equal to 1. And these weights are calculated by aforementioned formula. Okay. And this is the main result of their study. And as shown in the figure, left side of the figure, the dot line represents synthetic South Africa, and black lines represents actual South Africa, and the differences between synthetic and actual are represented here as treatment effect. So this result represents that there is a great reduction in cigarette use after 1994. And they discussed several things. Yes. Per capita cigarette consumption in South Africa was about 63% less in 2004 than it would have been had South Africa not followed this strategy. Between 1994 and 2004, the real price of cigarette increased by 110% in response to 249% increase in the real excise tax. And other tobacco control measures such as advertising bans and the prohibition of smoking in public places were implemented from 2001. And they also performed several sensitivity analysis to check their robustness, because the donor pool in general selected manually by the researchers themselves. So they changed the included countries in several patterns, and the results were similar to the mean results. So they discussed their findings is robust. And we can do this method, synthetic control method, using synth command, and we can obtain similar graph here, right here, and we can adjust. We can adjust covariates such as, for example, the proportion of teenagers or income levels or unemployment rate and so on. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's all. Any comments?
Main result. This dot line is it mean the counterfactual situation
Yeah.
if without so South Africa.
Exactly.
And the second question is the treatment can be. I think this study used binary exposure. Binary exposure, like you change or not. Change with cigarette policy with policy about cigarette or not. I think it can be continuous. Well, for example, I imagine, for example, if we can use the exposure as continuous, for example, percent, then we can analyze if 100% of children are covered by water fluoride monthlies, and if 0% were covered, then we can analyze the difference between prefectures. I think it will depend on.
I think this is only if you are exposed to treatment or not, like treatment or not treatment, only in that kind of scenarios.
So it have to be 001 binary, like DIT.
Yeah, so it's like as I understand this method, like before this the treatment, they are kind of like using matching technique to create. Now in this case they use Peru, Venezuela, those countries to create a synthetic South Africa. So this dotted line is a synthetic South Africa made out of those countries. To select those countries, they use, I think, matching technique, the closest matches. So donor pool also researcher decide, but these closest matches are decided by the package. Right? So they picked out. So we include, like for similar countries, we include 10 countries, but the program picked out about 5 countries, and they created the synthetic South Africa up to here. So then for that synthetic South Africa, after the treatment, it's kind of a simulation. They simulate without treatment how they progress. So that's the simulation part of this method. And we have data for the treatment group. Then it's like a DID after the treatment. So they
Untreated.
untreated and treated.
So we need target on one, for example, country or area, and we need just one invasion time point.
Yeah.
Then we can do such kind of analysis.
So I think the beauty is that the incorporation of all these three, like before the treatment they use like PS matching to look at closest matches. Then after the treatment you simulate the synthetic, because that's like a perfect control. You are controlling, like with or without treatment, it's like the same thing. So it's like a perfect control, almost perfect control. I think that's how I understand this method.
Thank you very much for the addition. Yeah.
The hardest thing is, as we said, finding data. Like
people kindly taught me this method. Yeah.
I think if we want to check the change of the trend from 1994, joint point regression is also another option to check just change of the trend. そういう Joint point regression is it is very famous because National Cancer Institute released these kind of softwares and this is just like Google paper. This paper uses joint point regression to check the change of the trend, and this paper checks the change of this kind of trend. So joint point regression is, I think I have never used it, but some people use. I heard in epidemiology conference. So and also software released from here. So it is easy to check the change point from this joint point regression. But I think the Ikeda-san's paper, that is very interesting because we can estimate the treatment effect for different years. I think that's kind of joint point regression. That is a regression. So estimation from here is just a prediction. So it is a very simple assumption, I think, linear assumption. But this kind of difference are so non-linear because treatment effect was estimated from that kind of synthetic estimation. So this is quite interesting. This estimation is quite interesting.
And also for this method, it said that like the method is improved if you have like more pre-treatment data and less post-treatment data, because then your like the accuracy of your synthetic model is better. If you have more, it's like more pre-treatment and less. So if the treatment is around 2000, the accuracy of the model improves.
I have a question. Why did they choose a list of countries, not only one country to compare with South Africa?
In order to calculate more precise, to create counterfactual South Africa. And so, but they selected only 5 countries in this in this model.
So even there are 5 countries in this study, they are not comparing South Africa's cigarette consumption with any of these countries.
Yeah,
They are just using it to create another South Africa. So there's no comparison of South Africa with any other countries. This is just
making the model.
Yeah, just looking at the effect within South Africa because of the change.
So they are
in times.
pulling these 5 countries' data together to create a comparative with South Africa.
Yeah. Created in South Africa. I was trying to create new Miyagi's Miyagi but not successful still.
Wow.
So Japan, it's hard to find enough data.
We can use this method by 国民基礎調査.
Maybe difficult because国民生活基礎調査 is survey conducted 3 years, so maybe prefer annual survey. So, just for your information, there is a difference in different synthetic control method in the economic field. They combined the concept of difference and difference and the synthetic control method together. But I don't understand what they are going to do. And the calculation for weighted average is in recent economic field, they use a Bayesian analysis to calculate weighted average, but this method is not covered in Stata or other software. So any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Ikeda-san. Let's close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting paper.